Hey, welcome to Text Me When You Outside, the podcast celebrating the past and present leaders of nightlife, live entertainment, and hospitality. I'm one of your hosts, Brandon McEachern, followed by my co-host,
Marcus Allen.
Let's get it going. Bump, 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 bump. You know what I mean? This Christmas, special episode of Text Me When You Outside, you know what I mean? With your host, Brandon McEachern, and my co-host,
Marcus Allen.
So this right here, this is a very special episode for us. For those who've been on our journey, you know what I mean, with the Text Me When You Outside journey, you pretty much only heard testosterone-esque voices. It's been all men on our podcast, other than Marcus and I talking. So we are beyond excited for this guest and to get her insight and to hear about her journey. She's such a very close friend of Broccoli City and also a very, very close friend of us personally. So without further ado, I would like to introduce, you know what I'm saying, our homie, the friend, the amazing, wonderful, Tiffanie Wagner. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank God for having me. I'm excited to be the first woman.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm excited. I was looking forward to it. When I got the email, I was like, me? The guy chose me? Absolutely.
Absolutely.
That's love, bro. That's love. Yo, it was crazy because when we was talking about doing the pod, I was actually trying to remember. I couldn't even remember how we met.
2014? That's when I was with Walmart. Remember, I was representing Walmart. I was on the other side of things, and y'all was trying to get sponsorship.
Okay, so let's go back. Hold on. Let's go back.
We skipping his talking.
Yeah, we skip it. Hold on. So let's go back to the genesis of Tiff, right? We're just gonna hop right into it. I guess we could say, how did your journey begin? You know what I mean? Like how are we talking right now? You know what I'm saying? Like, where did it start? How'd you get your foot into this industry? I guess we could kind of take it from there if that works with you.
That's fine. I mean, I kind of just pushed my way in. Like, my background, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but I was a medical assistant at 15. So I was working at a doctor's office. I started college to become a physician assistant. Yeah, like I was going the medical route. I went to Eastern Shore, University of Maryland, and chemistry just kicked my ass. I don't know if I could curse on here, but chemistry kicked my ass. And I was like, I've done this enough. So time to hone in on another skill. So I really loved writing. I've loved writing since I was a kid. And just started writing press releases, freelance, doing stuff, projects for different friends, family, and people. And then 2007, I was like, you know what? Let me take this serious because I know I don't want to go the medical route no more. Let me take it serious. Switch my major to communications. And honestly, I started my own business. I couldn't find a firm or a project or anything in particular that I was passionate about. So I was like, instead of trying to force a circle into a square or a square into a circle, let me just go out here and do this on my own. So since 2007, just been on my own, doing my thing.
Interesting. So I heard you say, and Mark, let me know when you want to hop in here, but I heard I heard you say Eastern Shore. Where are you from originally?
I'm originally from New York.
Got it.
I've lived in Maryland since I was a kid. So if I tell somebody from New York, I'm from New York now, they're not going to believe me. So I'm from Maryland, really.
Got it. And so you just went to undergrad, graduated.
Yep.
Got it. Okay. And was working in the medical scene. Did not know that at all. You know what I mean?
I was working. My first job was a doctor's office. I was 15.
Wow.
I went to vocational school part-time when I was in high school. So like I would go take my regular classes and then I would go to another school, became a certified medical assistant, and they gave me a job.
Interesting. So where does this love for, writing press releases from being a medical assistant it seems like a big jump. You know what I mean?
It is. But I mean, I think, people talk about taking skills that you learn in other areas and applying it. And I think that's where my love of people come from. So figuring out a different way to be able to interact with people and make people feel good. So instead of doing it from a medical perspective, do it through music and entertainment. Sports, I have a sports background. I've done probably every industry in PR that you could think of. But it really it translated over from a soft skills perspective, like not necessarily the writing or how to, do like MLA style, all that kind of stuff. It was the soft skills that I was able to.
Got it. I love that. So when I think about PR, right, I automatically think about, obviously you're doing stuff for other people. Mm-hmm. So I guess once you start doing your press releases, other people started, or you decided to help people. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out how you got into PR, the PR of it all.
Yeah. So it was really just, I started in entertainment. So working with different up and coming artists, they needed media contacts. So I would just forge relationships. I had a lot of relationships with media. So it was writing the press releases, pitching them to different outlets. And from there, I started working closer with radio contacts. So getting them placed on local radio. After a little while, I felt like I knew the work part of it, but I didn't necessarily know the business part of it. So it was 2012 is when I was like, okay, let me go to an agency for a little bit so I can learn the business part of it. I went, it was a funny story because I volunteered. Nobody would hire me because they kept saying you're overqualified. You're overqualified for these roles. So I volunteered. I was like, you know what? Give me this intern position. They did not want to give it to me. And they finally gave it to me. It was for one of their nonprofit clients. And while I was there, the CEO of the company, she came and she was like, I don't know who hired you for this intern position. She was like, but I need your help on this new business that I'm going after. So she hired me on the spot. I worked there for about 2 years. I went from an intern to a director in 2 years. And that's when I met y'all through that process. And again, it was one of those situations where I was just like, I'm seeing things from a different lens. I'm in corporate at this point. So doing big mergers, I was in public affairs, working with lobbyists, working with Pepco, Exelon, Walmart, all of these different clients. And I got to a point where, I don't know if y'all are familiar with public affairs, but they run a lot of big budgets. And I used to see how I would have to fight with these corporations to get $2,500 for Broccoli City. And they're giving $50, $75K to causes they don't even really care about. So it was just all right, Tiff, we're not going to keep fighting these people for their pennies. Go back out. Or I don't know if y'all remember, but the first year was, I think it was $5K that they approved.
I remember that shit. I remember
this. Yeah. And they were the scrutiny that I was under for that project, I was like, this ain't worth it. I'd rather go and show Marcus and B how to really value the property so they could get the big money. It doesn't make sense for me to be on this side seeing how it's run and not being able to make a difference. So that's when I went back out. I did sports for a little while. I represented some of the Redskins at the time. And then Trelectro happened. And once Trelectro moved, I was just I started promoting. And I hated being a promoter. I hated it. Did not like working in the clubs. And so once Broccoli City happened and they gave us, y'all got that money, that was it. Y'all had me for 10 years now.
It's crazy. Yeah, that's crazy. It has so many, just over the years, man, we done been through so many situations. But I think the situation that really starts to in my mind starts to tell the Tiff story is gotta be 2016, right? Because
yes, yeah.
There was just so much shit going on that it was just I felt that everybody's head was just gonna explode because we had scaled up, right? We had kind of been a certain size. It had kind of been a certain energy. I felt that all the competition was around the same size, us, Trelectro. There was probably some other brands that were out there, not in DC, but just across the country. But I felt that 2016 year was such a pivotal year because not only did we have Future and it was a sellout and it was the brands and we crossed that 10,000 mark, but we also had some fucking sponsors. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that was the first year of Toyota.
No, Toyota was there in 2014. I think that was the year that Toyota actually
spent some money.
Yeah, they spent money that year. Yeah.
So Part and my co-host and our guest hopping yet again far into the thing. For you guys who are listening today, who know exactly what Tiff does, you know what I mean? Like, Tiff, is there a way that you can explain that? Obviously, you met your friends who have a festival. You spoke about getting brands and sponsorships and all this as early as 2016. Like, is that what you do? Like, you bring sponsorships to the okay.
Yeah, so I mean, I used to like, I hate selling sponsorships now. It's crazy. I used to love it. I used to be like, no, I'm selling. Now my focus is really on activating brands in Black spaces and really showing brands like how to show up in these spaces. Like I said, I worked on the sponsorship side, so I know how to sell. I worked on the PR side, so I know how to communicate. Now it's really about activating and making sure that the engagement is there. So I really work on just experiential marketing at this point.
So for the young people out there, a lot of young people come up to Marcus and I, at least for me specifically, and they say, yo, B, like, how can I get a sponsor? How can I, get a brand to be a part of my event? And being that you've been doing this for so long, if you have any quick, rule of thumb that you would like to share, you know what I mean? I think that would be awesome. Just,
I mean, I could write a book on that, and I probably should. During the pandemic, I said I was going to do workshops, but it's a lot. And stop me if I get too long-winded. But I'll say like the biggest skill you have to know is how to build connections over networks. Like, everybody is so big on networking. Go here, go there, and it's like you're just collecting people at that point. You got to really know how to forge relationships that go beyond just transactions. And I think that that's the biggest thing, not only for getting sponsors, but even as like for career wise. I get people now that come to me with opportunities just because I built a connection with them when I was selling sponsorship. But it went beyond that. Like, one of my closest friends was a client at one point because I was selling her a sponsorship. So I will say, starting there with just looking beyond the transaction and what people can do for you or what you can do for them, because really nobody cares. Like, when the pandemic happened, everybody learned PR, everybody learned how to sell sponsorship. Like, that's what they did. That's what we all had time at home. So now it's like, all right, what soft skills can I learn? It's keeping your heart pure. It's knowing that, like, you really genuinely have to be a good person. You really genuinely have to build connection with people, and you got to be passionate about what you're selling. Like, to your point, people come to me all the time like, hey, can you sell a sponsorship for this? Can you get me a sponsor? And I'm like, I don't even know how to say that. Like, I don't even know what this is or what it means. And so, going back to my point earlier about not staying at that agency, it was like there was no passion there. So I had to go back out and do the things that I'm passionate about, which is why even with the LNU situation, when I worked with LNU, it's like I'm passionate about Black people. So I could sell a sponsorship for a Black project any day. It's just, you just have to figure out what is important to you.
So let me ask you this: if I'm my bad, Mark. If I am a small event or whatever the case may be, right? Like, some of the information that I need to provide. When should I reach out to somebody like a Tiffanie? You know what I mean? Like, could you give any advice on that side?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've had these conversations many times with building properties. It's like, don't come to me with just the idea yet. Come to me with something that's flushed out, something that's built out. Truthfully, a lot of brands nowadays are looking for a proof of performance, a proof of concept. So you might not get it on your first go round. Like, that first go round, you might have to come out of pocket with and spend some money on it. But if you actually put more emphasis on the programming versus just it being an event, brands are flocking to it. I told somebody this recently, like, people aren't really looking for one-offs anymore. They're looking for platforms. Like, you got to be able to speak to people from different avenues. So I know Broccoli City was an event. It was a festival for a while. Now Broccoli City is a platform. Like, you go to Broccoli City to find out news about Black entertainment and culture. So, like, to get to that point that's really when you need somebody or can bring in somebody to sell sponsorships too early, and you're just like in one ear out the other.
Got it.
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest misconception about sponsorships is that I think specifically our people have these great ideas, and they have ideas with the mindset that a sponsor is going to come in and believe that their idea is that good and it's going to underwrite them and support them from their deck without any proof of concept. And I think, to be honest with you, like, I think that's tough for even established brands like us, right? Like, you know, it's not sweet to be able to tell the story, because at the end of the day, it's people like us who just have a job, who just want their life to be easy. So it's like, you know, you asking them to come in and take your word that this new platform or this new event is going to be incredible. But then they got this other thing that's established, and they like, shit, I need my job. Like, why I'm gonna rock the boat? So I think that's what it comes down to, is people are making decisions for their own personal livelihood by saying, like, hey, I'm gonna go with the sure bet, right? Like, I know that this event has been happening. I know they're traveling now. They're going to new markets. Yeah, I'm going to do that, rather than saying, oh, this new event that could be that whatever. I think that's probably the biggest thing that I'm seeing, is like, people want the sure bet. Like, maybe you can get them to take a risk, but in most cases, they want the sure bet.
Yeah, that, and you're also getting new talents in the corporations. So like, some of these brands aren't going out and looking outside anymore. They're bringing people in that can create these things for them. Like, they're bringing people in that can create a festival, that can create, you know, their own property, like their IP. So it's getting harder, it's getting tougher, but you just gotta understand, like, truly understand where the need is in the industry to be able to excel at it at this point.
So, earlier in our conversation, you spoke about starting your own business, right? When you left the agency. I want to talk a little bit about that. First of all, was there a moment? I know you kind of touched on it, but like, where was the moment where you had the gall? Now, I know you said the story about, you know, you working on a nonprofit project. Let's go a little bit deeper in that, because I think that a lot of people, they say, oh, I'm going to go out here and start a business. You know what I mean? It's just kind of willy-nilly, right? Without like really doing the research. Like, for you, did you have a couple of paychecks? I know you very well, right? So I know you're very organized, right? Like,
Tim has some paychecks. Tim's going to stay with a paycheck now. What's Tim going to do?
Tim gonna have a paycheck.
It's like, how do you know about that at such a young age? You know what I mean? Like, I take it very seriously. And then I want to obviously go into Mahogany Ave. But now we're talking about your first PR firm, because it was Mahogany Ave. So
no, I got you. It was Wagner & Co. Like, I was Wagner & Co. for a while.
I got that email in my joint when I type up Tiffanie.
Honestly, like, I'm the worst person to talk to for entrepreneurship. Like, I hate it. I don't like being a business owner. I don't have a lot of positive things to say about it, because it's hard. If I didn't have like my family to really be in the valleys with me, like, I probably would have quit a long time ago. Like, people talk about peaks and valleys of entrepreneurship and small business. There's a lot more valleys than there are peaks. And you gotta really just have that drive. My drive truly just comes from not wanting to work for nobody. Like, I want to be able to say, no, I love this, so I want to do this. Or no, I hate that, so I don't want to do that anymore. PR, I don't want to write a press release anymore, so I don't do it anymore. I don't want to sell sponsorships anymore, so I don't do it anymore. But without having, I just had the audacity. That's really all it was. I had the audacity to say, all right, regardless of what it's looking like, I'm going to do it. Now, there are often times where I'm like, dang, I don't want to do this. Pandemic was a big one, because it was like, you know, at that point I was heavy in entertainment. So when we shut down, I wasn't working for over a year. There was nothing. But I was able to live off of savings. That's really all it genuinely was. Like, I don't have a hero moment where I was just like, oh, I'm going to go and start my business. It really was just the audacity to do it. And I've been blessed to be able to continue to have opportunities when I thought that things were slowing down. Like, this year, I've worked until yesterday. Normally, I'm done after Broccoli City. This year, up until yesterday, I was working. So it's just continuing to be blessed, really.
So was there anybody in your life before? Did your mother have a business? Did your father have a business? Did your grandmother have a business?
My mom did not have her own business, but she worked hard. Like, we were homeless when I was younger. And I just saw, like, my mom was a single mom. It was 4 of us, and I just really watched how hard she worked, and I hated the fact that she was working so hard for somebody else. And so I think that might be a part of why I'm so anti working for other people, because I'm like, I see my mom has done great. Like, my mom has done really well for herself, but I always hated the fact that she had to get up and go and do it for somebody else. And that's really all it was. There's nobody else in my family that's a business owner. I didn't have any mentors at all. Like, I've really genuinely just been doing it on my own, and I like to learn. So I'll spend all day researching how to build a website before I go and ask somebody to do it for me. So that's really all it is. Yeah.
I feel like a lot of kids have that mindset nowadays. It's very DIY, you know what I mean? Like lifestyle with the youngins, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But no, that's super duper powerful. And you know, moving to the second segment, right? Like, we just moving into this Mahogany Ave side of the life, right? Like, we going up the hill, going back down, you know what I mean? Mahogany Ave, you know what I mean? Which, in my understanding, is to your point, it's not about PR, it's not about selling sponsorships, it's about activating, like, could you help kind of break that down for those who don't know? And if you could take us through, like, going to a festival. You go to a festival, you go to a big event, everybody, when you walk into the gates, you know, usually you'll see a big sign, whatever the name of the event is.
Let's speak of what you do for Broccoli City. I mean,
we could go.
Yeah. I mean, I think since day one with Broccoli City, we got there the last few years since we started doing sponsorship, but really the goal is to make sure that brands are showing up authentically. So don't bring me the same thing that you're taking to a Lala or Gov Ball. Like, I want you to come into this festival, and I want you to really understand the consumer, understand what they want, what's going to make them attracted to your brand, so that we can help you meet your KPIs. Like, I think a lot of what was missing was just, we were all going out and getting sponsorships because we wanted the dollars. We weren't thinking about how the consumer would feel about this brand even being here. I remember the days we used to argue over McDonald's. like, no, McDonald's is not aligned with Broccoli City. But then it's like, okay, figuring out how they can. So I think for BroccoliCon, was it when we worked with them on, like, their job career fair, the career program. Yeah, so it's like figuring out how to make sure that these brands understand the festival, understand the consumer, and even understand how far they're going to go in this space. Like, a lot of brands think, oh, I'm going to just take this turnkey activation, drop it here, and because they loved it at Broccoli City or they loved it in Dreamville, they're going to love it at Rolling Loud.
So for those of you who don't know, pardon interrupt you, Tiff, for those of you who don't know, an activation is when you go to a festival site and you see, you know, Coca-Cola, and there'll be a big mural of Coca-Cola, and, you know, maybe you can throw a dart at the wall in the Coca-Cola can or something.
Let me give it the Febreze example. So Febreze is my project of the year. Like, we've had a hell of a run with that program. But Febreze, they came and they wanted a mood lounge. They had 3 new scents. So it was Refresh and Energize, Soothe and Restore, and Romance and Desire. They wanted to figure out a way to introduce Febreze into the festival space, which is like non-endemic. So it means it's not a brand that typically shows up in the festival. They challenged us with, hey, we got to figure out how people can smell the scent. We can't spray it because it's at a festival. We can't really have aerosol. So what we did was just built this 360 open air activation, 3 different sides to it. They're all photo moments, and you can actually smell the fragrance when you go by the different photo drops. One part about experiential is that we're taking it to different festivals, so you got to know which one is that hero moment. So at Dreamville, we chose Refresh and Energize as the hero moment because it was a Fresh AF letters. I will say, like, that was probably the wrong decision because Soothe and Restore looked the best in that environment. So, like, we just did Rolling Loud, Romance and Desire. People loved it in that space. So it really just goes beyond creating something that looks good and really studying your audience and knowing how it's going to impact them to that point. Like Hennessy, the same thing with Hennessy. They took that activation and they knew where it worked. I did Zevo. We did a Zevo greenhouse. Zevo is an insect trap. Like, we did a trap house where they did a silent disco with trap music. So it's like really understanding the audience and how these brands can show up and encouraging them to take a chance, really.
Why is that? I think that was probably one of the biggest things for years that was like tough for, us and many. The separation of selling versus managing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it was always like this weird collusion of them both, right? Where you were going to meet this person who had all these relationships, who could sell sponsorship. And then they also managed the relationship all the way through and provide the reports. And it's like, as you kind of get into the bigger spaces and you start having, upper six figures into the 7-figure deals, you just realize those are two completely different people, right? Can you kind of speak to like that side? Because I think a lot of people probably assume that the person sales is also the best person to manage. And I think we now see that that's completely just not the approach. And I think if you're doing it like that right now, currently, you're probably leaving money on the table because your salesperson can't focus enough to be able to really execute and do what you need to do.
So for layman terms, yet again, for those who watching, because we always want to teach it how you teach, you get a brand, you go off and get Coca-Cola to be a part of your event. They want to be a part of it now. So a Tiff, back in the day, she sold that. Yes, we want to do your event. Marcus is asking her, well, who is going to manage that relationship until the event comes? So now, Tiff, go ahead.
No, all the way through the event. Who's going to help build activation? Who's going to help get the staffing? Who's going to help make sure that they have the necessary permits for whatever it is that they doing? Like, just all the nuts and bolts of it. You know what I mean?
I think that's where you go from what I said before, like from transactional to people management. So you got the transaction, which happens with the salespeople, but they're selling back to back to back to back. They're not taking the time out to stop and do anything beyond that contract, right? So it's like we are selling it to you with the expectation that you're coming in and you know what you're doing. A lot of brands that are coming into our type of festivals don't know how to do it in our festival setting. So agencies are coming in and they're like, okay, we have our build. We know how to get our shipping containers up, but we need y'all to tell us like what our footprint looks like. Is this the best location? I'll go back to Hennessy. Like I've seen their activation all year. So they come in at a 20 by 20. I'm like, y'all not gonna fit that in there. So we have to move it up to a 40 by 40. But it takes that institutional knowledge of the property you're working with and the brand that you're working with to be able to cater the experience to the brand. So I just separate the two that way. Like you have the sale, which is the transaction. After the sale is somebody, depending on how big it is, it's either just going straight to activation or you insert a brand manager who is really that relationship person. Like I work with Nalini on a lot of brands, and Nalini will make sure that client has their tickets, they eat, like everything. And I'm like, I don't want to have to do that because I want to work with the fabricator. I want to work with the agency. I'm working on making sure that site ops has what they need. So it's different layers to it depending on how big that brand and the sponsorship is, but you can't have it all in one anymore. It's just like brands are getting used to, if they're spending over a certain amount, they want to be catered to. And you just got to have those different layers.
One thing that I'm interested in, as I'm hearing you speak about this, I remember back in the day, you having to deal with a lot of personalities going back to the people management of it all. And I wonder if you'd be open to sharing a crazy story where wires had gotten crossed. It don't have to be a specific one, but I'm pretty sure it's a lot. I remember when you first came on and you did a bunch of stuff for Live Nation Urban, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Frank, and you had to manage not only the promoter, because, you were dealing with different promoters, you know what I'm saying? And you have to balance that relationship as well as your own, as well as, you know what I mean? So could you speak to that and just kind of how you managed that at one point?
I don't think I have one specific example, but I'm going to say this generally. Like, I realize that in this industry, a lot of people at the top are older people. And they are people that have been doing this for years and they're set in their ways. So when you bring in the newer generation, like the Broccoli Cities, you bring in even LNU, you're bringing in younger people, there's a lot of friction there. It's like, no, we've been doing this, or no, that's my relationship, this is my relationship. And it's like, you can have that relationship, but if you don't have the manpower after that relationship, it can't get done on the ground. So going back to the activating part is like really having to consistently explain my role. It's like, I'm not trying to step on anybody's toes, because that's what a lot of people above you think. It's just like, you're trying to take my place. I'm not trying to take your place. I'm trying to help, support, and further what you're already doing. And so it was a lot of friction in that space. I know that this industry is full of mean girls too. So I've come across the mean girls and all of that. What I will say is, for me, I just try and keep my heart very pure. Like, I love people. I love to make sure that everybody's taken care of. I may curse you and Marcus out. We may fuss.
This new tip is amazing. No. La 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 la.
Fuss and fight, but you're never gonna see that, like, show, like, people on the outside not gonna be able to see that. You know what I mean? Like, we'll fuss and fight because I want y'all to be better. I want us to grow and to continue to do these things. But like, I just try to be nice to everybody. If they're not nice to me, I'm like, well, you're lost. But, you know, I think I've learned a lot over the years in terms of not trying to be liked. I'd rather be respected. So.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
No, I love that. Love that. I know, you know, it always be interesting to see, because for years, I think people knew that you were behind the scenes helping us with sponsorship, but I was surprised to see how many people had reached out to you directly for them to do the same thing for you. Like, I ran into somebody recently that's in fucking Houston and was like, yeah, I had reached out to Tiffanie like a few years ago to help me with sponsorship. This is like, they were like, yeah, this is 4 years ago. And it just be like baffling to me to be like, man, like, over the time, we at some point must have been looking good as hell, right? Like, the Broccoli City brand, the whole team, like the way that we were moving at that, especially pre-COVID. Like, I feel like COVID really changed a lot for us. Like, we really were trending aggressively up going into COVID. And I feel like that people looked at the way that we were building the team, and I felt like that there was so much energy around people wanting to recreate that. And I think that was interesting because it almost became where it was like, you were like a unicorn. I don't think people even knew how to find Tiffanie. So the only thing they could do was just like literally try to reach out to you. Like, and I'm curious your thoughts on, like, in 2025, are there a lot of good sellers? Are there a lot of good brand managers as you're moving around? And I guess I'm specifically asking of color, people of color, specifically Black women. Do you find that? Is that an area where, if maybe a Black girl is in PR, should she be thinking about brand management? Or, like, what are your thoughts on, like, is the industry in a place that people should be considered this as a career shift? Because we know they didn't go to school for this, right? So is this something that they should be thinking about from a career shift perspective?
Absolutely, especially in this industry. I think that, to your point, PR is a great transition to brand management. If you're in marketing, that's a great integration, like a great transition into the experiential part. So I think that learning, again, going back to soft skills versus hard skills, you can take the book, what you're learning in the book, but a lot of this stuff is hands-on. You're not learning how to be a brand manager in school. You're not learning how to build an activation and be creative in school. You're learning that stuff by being in the industry. So I do think that there is a lot of opportunity. There are not a lot of Black sellers. There are not a lot Black brand managers. I probably know 2 off the top of my head. And it's hard. It's hard. And you do everything you can to, like, push people to do it. But I think until we really start demanding those jobs, we're going to continue to get the coordinator jobs. We're not going to get the lead. We're not going to get put on these big projects. Like right now, I'm put on a big project because I came in and I said, hey, y'all do what y'all want with those brands. I want this brand because they want Black people. You got to go where you want it. If a brand wants Black people, don't let them come in there and swap you out for somebody else, not a person of color, because people of color are not Black people. Like, you got people of color who every other race falls under that. I am a Black woman. Like, so if somebody's asking for a Black woman, we just have to be bold enough to stand up and say, yo, let me do this. I got it. And a lot of that's how a lot of these people get in these roles. Not because they went to school for it, not because they've done it.
And so when they're thinking about brand, like these roles, I'm guessing they should think about, agencies like the Burrells and shit. I don't even know the agencies. It's Tiffanie. There's a lot of different agencies.
Yep.
Obviously, the producers themselves, the Live Nations, the AEGs. Like who else? Like I guess you could be a brand manager for the brand, for the Walmart, for the Amazons to some degree, right?
Yeah, both sides.
Any other like areas any other like tentpole companies they should even be thinking about?
I mean, Team Epiphany, definitely. Game 7. I love the Game 7 team. I think really is just getting in there. I will say too, though, that a lot of these, while I am going for like with an all Black agency, I do think that there is space and we should take up space in some of these agencies that are led by white people, because I think that they're still going after Black business. They're still going after the accounts that want Black leads. They need a Black lead on these accounts. So I think that
be that Black woman in that meeting.
Exactly. Like you need a Black person in that meeting, and not to ever want to be the token Black person. But once you get in the door, you can open up other seats at the table when you do it. A lot of people just only want to go for Black agencies, Black this, Black that. It's like, if I got an opportunity, just like at Live Nation, if I have an opportunity to step on this side of things, I'm going to step over there and I'm going to bring people with me. So I think it's a lot of opportunity out there, a lot of different agencies. Just figure out exactly like what industry you want to hone in on.
Mm-hmm. No, I love that. Transitioning a little bit away from the career kind of part of the conversation, I'm curious, just from a Broccoli City perspective, what was your favorite year?
2016. That's all when you mentioned it. I was like, that was my favorite year. To your point, it was something different. I'll say 2016 before this year. This year has been my absolute favorite. But prior to this year and the new venue and everything, 2016 just felt like that coming out. It was like Broccoli City has been here, but like we're here.
Yeah.
Like people really started to mention Broccoli City in rooms. People started to understand the point of Broccoli City. It was like I couldn't go anywhere like without people knowing Broccoli City. And we actually started to have a name on, like, maybe not on the list, but in those conversations. We weren't making those this year, but we were in the conversation. And I think for DC to be in a position where Broccoli City was here and had, like, I think that was like the 2 years after Trelectro ended. So it was like, this was what was there. It was what was next. And it just stayed really authentic, no matter where we moved, no matter what we were doing. And I love Janae, so that was a treat for me. It worked out really well.
I heard you say something that really touched me, and I want you to touch on this real quick. Being that you did have your own business, you had made a comment about a seat at the table and being able to bring others to that table. I've met numerous amounts of young people through you that have worked with whether Wagner and Co., Mahogany Ave, whatever the case may be. So could you speak on that, on how important it is to, bring your peoples on, or maybe how difficult it is to work with, friends or people that's close to you? Can you speak on that, just in terms of having your own business?
I'm all about growing my own trees. So I'd rather bring somebody in and teach them something new, teach them how to really appreciate and value a role, rather than going out and bringing in somebody's experience. I'll use Tiara as an example. Tiara came to me and she wanted to intern for me. I'm like, girl, I don't have no money. I can't pay you. Like, you gotta, if you want to do it, come on. Then Broccoli City happened. She's like, all right, what do you want me to do? I think Tiara was 17 at the time, had no experience at all. But she really worked right alongside of me on stage management, to the point where y'all called me the next year and was like, Tiff, can you go back to sponsorship? But can we keep her? And to just see her in that role this year, like y'all understand, I still get a little teary eyes about it, because it's just like, one, I did that for my company to be able to say I grew her into this role, but to also have y'all as a client trust my judgment and bring her back and let her run in like the forefront. She literally had on the big headset. I would never put on a big headset. She had on the big headset and ran it. So I think, to that point, just bringing people to the table that want to learn, aren't trying to necessarily be seen. Like Sierra never wanted to be in the front. She's not like, oh, I got to do this where I'm talking to people. I'm on here. She loves the background. So to be able to grow her into a place where she was comfortable doing that meant a lot. Everybody that works with me have been with me for years. Maurice he was the first person that ever worked with me. And Maurice is 2016. Maurice has been with me. And he's been in different roles. Like Maurice has gone from PR to artist to social media, sponsorships, back to PR. Instagram. Back to PR, influencer. And even now, like I'm working on Deadass, the comedy show. I'm having him, I'm like, yo, I don't do media relations. I need you to come in and do media relations. So it's just like, I love to make sure that people are versatile and adaptable. Like if you're working with me, you got to know how to do everything that I know how to do. That's just hands down. To your second point, working with people that I know. My sister was my assistant for years, Amber. Y'all know I lose my mind without Amber nowadays. But yeah, I think that it's important to work with people that you trust. A lot of people have bad experiences. I've had my own share of bad experiences with people trying to come in and steal business and do all those things. But I always go back to, if you're a good person, you meet good people. And there's no way that anybody's going to take anything from me that's not mine. So,
got you. I love that. Yeah, I was going to ask you, like, because we be asking like different questions of different people, and like one of the things we talked about like early with a lot of the early guests is like just like favorite nights, right? Like one special night that stands out in my mind. This ain't even Broccoli City, but like All-Star Weekend in Atlanta years ago was like a very special moment, right? And I think when you in this industry, we get such access to things that sometimes we can be jaded and be in moments and not realize like, oh shit, like this is like a moment. I'm curious to share some of those special moments that you like, yo, I seen Stevie Wonder with Michael Jackson and Quincy Jones was playing the harmonica. Like share a special night with us.
Honestly, I think I recently had that special night. Well, not even a night, the week. And if you know me, you know that Rolling Loud is not my scene. Rolling Loud is not my thing. I was at Rolling Loud for a week, and I actually turned to my boy Darnell on, I think it was Future Night. 'Cause me and him, we were both ready to go. And I'm just standing there, I'm like, we're in the Loud Club.
Shout out to Darnell, by the way.
I love Darnell. We're in Loud Club. We're just standing there, and I'm like, Darnell, like, this is our life. Like, people have paid thousands of dollars to get here, and we sitting here like,
ready to go.
What time can we leave? Like Future's on. The next night, Travis Scott comes in on a helicopter. Then you got Playboy Cardi. I landed Tuesday night and immediately was like, I want to go see Janae. She's in town. I've missed her all year. That night to me was like, it started off this appreciation. I don't think I can't say that I had a night before that was special, because it's like, because we're in this space, I'd be like, all right, I'm ready to go home. It's nothing is ever special or meaningful because you're always on to the next one. So I really did take the time to sit and like soak this in. I saw Janae Thursday, saw Usher Monday before I left. So I had like a whole full week.
Damn, all in Miami?
All in Miami. I had a whole full week.
You had an All-Star Live weekend. That's incredible. I love that.
And it meant so much because it was just like, I actually took the time out to say, look, you worked your ass off all year. Like, I've wanted to see Janae in every city, and I was always working. So I landed, dropped my stuff off, got a ticket on the way there, and had the time of my life. I was like in the third row. It's crazy. It's beautiful. But I'll say things like that. The spontaneous nights are special nights to me. I've seen Beyonce. I've seen the Jay-Z's. Growing up, I've been in these spaces. So to me, those things aren't special. It's being able to do something specifically for me and that I want to do.
No, I love that. I love that. I was going to ask you, when you think about the future, like, I know, like, there was a while where, like, I felt like you were trying to build a team, like you were in team build mode. I get the sense that you now like less about team, more about efficiency. You know what I mean? I could be wrong about that, but that's the sense I get.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on like the next 2-3 years? You know, obviously you got a new administration in, you know, DEI is going away, but Black folks still got money. So like as much as DEI might go away, you can't run from that dollar and that power that we present in culture. Absolutely. I'm curious on how you're thinking about the next few years, your role, like, do you see anything changing and that sort of thing?
I've said this to y'all for years. I want to be married with some kids. I'm not trying to do this no more. That's real. Like, I've been saying it for years, and then I find something else and I'm like, oh my gosh, I really love this. This is so much fun. I'm gonna do it. But I'm 36. Like, I'm like, at some point I have to be real with myself and be like, all right, girl, when you really gonna do it? And so I'll say I don't want it to ever be a place where there's no Mahogany Ave. So what that looks like, to your point, I'm not in team building mode anymore. If there are people that want to learn and people that are really willing to do the work, come on in. Come in now. Learn what I'm doing. I will teach you, and then you can continue on. I just don't have a desire to continue working as hard as I am right now. Like, I've literally been on the go since April. October, I was home for 26 hours the entire month. So to that point, like, for me personally, I think that I'm going to be hanging it up eventually. But from a business perspective, I think that there's always going to be a space for Black experiential producers. There's always going to be a space for Black brand managers and Black voices in general. So if I can spend like the next 2-3 years teaching the next Tiff or the next whomever how to do what I did and do it in an authentic way, that's how I want to spend my time. Not out here trying to go running after new business or doing like building a company from scratch. I just don't have that desire.
I love that. That shit's so real. And you know what it is? With age becomes honesty about yourself and your needs and like what you're willing to do for certain things. And I think that sometimes, like, as from a youth perspective, I feel like that we be devaluing our own thoughts and our own necessarily like our needs because it's like we want to chase the situation, but it's like, yo, you get to a point where you be like, man, fuck that shit. Like, it ain't even not even worth it. Nah, completely.
People our age don't even talk about retirement anymore. Like, we all just like everybody talk about the next 5 years. It's like, yo, you 45. You looking at 5 more years of working. Like, people our age, we don't have. We're just so focused on like continuing on. It's like, when do you rest? You got to rest at some point, and you actually have to enjoy what you're doing, or it's gonna be a miserable life. Like, there was a point where I just didn't enjoy it anymore, not because I wasn't doing great things, but because I wasn't taking time to celebrate the wins. You know what I mean? Like, if you just had a great, successful year, Broccoli City this year was incredible. If you don't take the time to stop and celebrate that, and you just move right on to the next one, you're gonna be like, dang, I'm continually chasing like this arbitrary goal. Like, what is the goal?
How you feel about this, like the corporate baddie trend of like setting my my boundaries and you know, like, I don't work weekends and after 5, I'll hit you back in the morning. Like is that, because that's not a millennial thing, right? Millennials, we have hard bosses, we have people who talk crazy to us, and we got much thicker skin. We're willing to be cursed at and be coached hard and be professionally driven hard. The younger demo definitely does not have that. But I'm curious, like, can you still succeed in the biggest picture with that mindset? Or is that just a trend? Like, what is your thoughts on that? I know how I feel about it, but I'm curious on what your thought is as a woman.
I think more power to them. If it works for you, it works for you. I can't relate because I'm not in that space. I will say from the outside looking in, I think it depends on the industry. In our industry, you can't be like that. You're going to miss opportunities. In our industry, if you're not always on, and not to say that it's good, it works, but in our industry, if you're not always on, we're going on to the next person. Like, I'm not sitting here and waiting for you to come back on from vacation. You don't have a second in command in your out of office email for me to reach out to. I'm going to go find somebody else. And I think that because this newer generation that is into the corporate baddie and those types of trends, it's like they don't feel indebted to anything. I feel like I have gotten here by working here and doing XYZ. I have to continue doing that because the moment I stop is when the corporate baddies come in. Is it fair? No. It's like they getting by doing the bare minimum. We were never trained to do that. So to turn it off right now for us, we would lose jobs. That's just like saying, you know, the older people that lost jobs during the pandemic because they couldn't work from home. They don't know how to do those things. Like my grandmother, she was at her company for 40 something years. Pandemic came, they like, oh, you got to work from home. She didn't like her own phone ringing at home. She's like, when I'm at home, I turn it off. So if I was to do that, I would be overlooked. It would be to the next person. It's a generational thing. If you're a millennial, don't try the corporate baddie shit. Don't try it. Like, you're going to get passed up on.
Say it's a young man's game. I love that. That's funny as hell. You can't play that shit as an old nigga.
No, you can't. And it's sad because we've worked so hard. You would think that we would be the ones to be able to set boundaries and stuff now. But it's like, nah, we'll just bring in somebody younger that we can pay less to. We're going to pay them less because they're not going to be on as much.
So y'all hear that? I mean, I think that's an interesting take, right? Like while you might get your flexibility, you know, you gonna be hindered by the bag. And I think as a person who hires people, I can't fucking stand that shit. Like, I fucking despise that shit because not even because I'm jealous. I'm disappointed because I know that at some point it's gonna hit a head, right? And they're gonna end up with disappointment, and they're not gonna quite understand how to explain it when somebody says to them what you just said, like, "Oh no, we moved on. Like, yeah, you hit us back. We moved to the next." And they're gonna take that so hard, and it's gonna take them a while to realize that at the end of the day, like, you're the only one that's playing that game because your boss is not thinking like that. I don't care what you think they think. They're giving you grace as an individual and they respect you, but they're not going to give you the grace to say, oh, we'll wait for you.
Exactly. Absolutely.
When you get back, they're moving on. But I think that these folks are going to have a hard time really realizing that once they get that one boss who's going to say, no, it's all good. No worries. You ain't got to show up.
Yeah.
And they show up the next day and they're like, oh no, you're good. Like we genuinely moved on. Like,
and I think it hinders you from learning like the resiliency and like that drive. Like I can turn my phone. My phone stays on D&D, but I know when I need to look at my phone. It's just like to be able to say I'm shutting down, I'm not doing XYZ, blah, 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 blah. And you have people depending on you to be able to do their job. It's like you don't have a care in the world. I'm gonna say it's selfish because everybody has their way of doing self-care, but it's just like figure out some other kind of self-care. Because just shutting off is not going to help with your longevity anywhere at all.
You had said something really, really powerful, and I'm gonna go ahead and try to like land this shit for us. You know what I mean? You had spoke about burning out, and you also spoke about celebrating small wins. Me personally, I think that's one of the biggest things that I've started to do, you know what I mean, in my life and in my journey. And to your point, you know what I mean, I be saying blank age, like, damn, you know what I mean? I gotta figure life out, whatever the case may be. But I just think that it's dope, and I just wanted to reiterate the part about celebrating those small wins for the young promoters and the young folks that are building these brands and building these experiences for others. I want to say that Marcus and I suffered from that a lot. You know what I mean? Just not even like doing amazing stuff, to your point, Tip, but not even like, yo, on to the next. Ain't no pat on the back, ain't no good job text, none of that. It's like, yo, we moving on to the next thing. But I do think that mental health and this, that, to the third. You know what I mean? It's a real thing. So for us to have our sister Queen on the joint, I just thought that was a great point. So I just wanted to reiterate that to everybody. Be grateful for those small wins, those events you do where 10 people come. You know what I mean? All that, you know. And last thing, damn, never mind. You touched on so much good shit, but I'm not sure. But yeah, you know what? I am gonna go into it. Fuck it. Text me.
Go for it.
You had said something earlier to regards of folks saying this is my relationship or owning that relationship. Can you touch on folks that own these relationships? Like, do I own a relationship because I brought XYZ to the table? Like, does that make it mine? You get what I'm saying? And I remember all things. I know Toyota. You know what I mean? Like, or whatever. Like,
so I'm guilty of it too. Like back in the day, I feel like we were all learning. I feel like everybody was new. Everybody's in it. Like, yo, I went to this event and I met this person. I'm bringing this person to the table. What it really all boiled down to was the money. Like, am I getting a cut of it? I don't like. People did not even care if they knew what was happening after that conversation or that intro was made. It was more so like, this is a person that I met first, and so this is my relationship. Nowadays, if you can't see those relationships through and you don't bring value to it, it's not your relationship. I could have cold emailed that same person. Like, I see people now and it's just like, oh, this is my relationship. You don't even talk to that person. Like, I talk to this person on the phone regularly, not even about business. Yeah. But I think it was more of a trying to stake your claim in the industry or in this space, especially in DC. You know, DC, everybody wants to say that they are at the top or in charge or have this relationship. But it really just boiled down to the percentage part of it. But now I think it's more so like the value in it. You can't say it's your relationship if you're not bringing value to it.
That's real.
Thank you for that.
In other words, it's what they be. What's the word? It's a statute of limitation on your middleman fee, motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't be running the middleman fee and you ain't done nothing for 3 years because you introduced us back in '96. Like, yo, no, you're not getting a cut. It's done.
Yeah.
But that's just my personal thoughts.
No, that's true. And I mean, the way that it happens is just like a lot of that stuff, the more educated we get, the more we push back on that stuff. And like, I look back at some of my old contracts and be like, how the hell you get away with that? Like, or why did you even agree to that? And it's just like, because we weren't educated. We were all trying to figure out, how do we learn how to do what these people are already doing because they've been doing it for so long. And we taught ourselves a lot of it.
Completely. I mean, everything about it we taught ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I definitely want to touch on before I leave is this word called no, right? I've seen you say no before, Tiff, you know what I mean? At a young age where I didn't think that I wouldn't say no. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Going back to your point about the McDonald's conversation or whatever the case may be, sometimes when Marcus and I, if somebody present a check, now granted, we always had integrity, you know what I'm saying? We ain't balls over here, but like, I'm trying to get that bread. I'm trying to figure that thing out. And I have seen you say no before. So I would love for you just to speak on your power, your audacity, or your gall to say no, and where did that come from? And then a caveat to that is I also want to talk to you about pricing and your worth, right? How you came to that. So first is no, second is worth, and we can start landing this.
Gotcha. So I think they go hand in hand, right? So I knew the value of Broccoli City. I knew what Broccoli City was worth. I knew what kinds of conversations were being had around and about Broccoli City. So I can look and say no to that because I know that they're playing in your face. So like the authenticity of knowing who I am, what I'm doing. Trust me, I'm just like, y'all know I love a check. But I also know that it will devalue you if you say yes to things that you're not supposed to be saying yes to. It's going to devalue you. And then your worth is not going to come through in other places. So I've always been that way. It's like no means no, because I'm authentic. I've educated myself on this enough to know that if I say no, another opportunity that is of value is going to come about. It's not the end. Like no doesn't mean forever. No is just like, this is not the right one. and knowing my worth, that again, it's audacity. That's the only thing I say. Audacity and knowing who I am, knowing God, knowing that I'm not letting people play in my face. I used to. It was bad. But then I see like how some like other people carry themselves, and I'm like, I know that I'm supposed to have that, but because they were bold enough to say give it to me, they got it first, but they got it in general. So like you have to really know who you are and know like what's yours and stand on it. You got to stand on it.
That's powerful, the whole stand on it of it all. Because I think a lot of us want to be that, right? Like it sound nice, you know what I mean? Sound nice, yo, I'm gonna stand on it. But as soon as somebody give you that kind of that look after you say what your price is or whatever the case may be, and you know you need the business, I guess to your point, looking at things from a spirit of abundance is probably the best way to go. And knowing or believing that something is gonna come behind to subsidize that.
Absolutely.
Love that.
Yeah. So, Mark, I don't know. I wanna land this sleigh. I know Tiff.
No, I mean, I'm great. Yeah, no, I'm great. This was a great conversation. I love having women energy on the pod. So like, this is great.
For those of you who want to find Tiffanie, Tiffanie, can you help us out in terms of where they can find you if they want to inquire about some business? I know we got some real business folks that listen to us as well. So where can they find you at, Ms. Wagner?
It's Tiffanie, Tiffanie, Wagner, Wagner, on Instagram, everywhere else, Tiffanie at mahoganyave.co. If you want to shoot me an email, as long as it makes sense with like the dollar.
Don't waste that girl's time because she got Broccoli City Kitties. Please don't waste her time. Please
don't waste my time. But yeah, you can find me anywhere. Definitely reach out. Love to connect with new people.
No doubt. Sure. We appreciate you so much. So, yo, we out.
Thank you, Tiff.
Love y'all.
Thank y'all for joining us on Text Me When You Outside. You know what I mean?
You guys.
You know, I'm going to holler at you.